All right, welcome Gator Nation. My name's George Biter, Vice President of Sales with Alliance. With me here is John Zimmerman coming from Canada.
All the way up from the Great White North. All the way down.
All the way down.
All the way
You're down, buddy. We're down here in New Jersey coming to you live. One of my favorite programs here, John. We're talking about Gator Base. We're talking Crunch the Numbers.
Crunching the numbers, not crunching the abs, right?
Yeah.
Not like they did in the video?
Not in the promo, though.
All right, not the promo.
So, good. So let's get into this program. We want to talk about Gator Base. We want to talk about crunching some numbers. So we're going to kick it off with the poll here. What we want to know is what the user base looks out there. So our first poll question for you today is, how many Gator Base jobs have you installed? So we'll bring that up on screen here, and you'll have a chance to answer that. So we have a better idea of what that looks like here. So I think the poll results are coming in here. Taking a look there, we've got quite a few coming here. Did you do it 0 times? Maybe you're brand new to Gator Base. Maybe you've only got a couple of jobs under your belt so far, 3 to 5 or 5 or more. And it looks like here the majority, I'm seeing a little over 50% coming through here, is brand new to Gator Base.
Brand new. I mean, Gator Base is a great product, and it's a great way to get acquainted with it is in these trainings. And I mean, I find it's the most efficient way to lay a patio right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about it, since we do have a lot of users out there who are new to it. Walk us through the concept. What are we talking about here with Gator Base?
Yeah, so essentially the concept is you will replace that aggregate that's underneath your bedding layer.
Yep.
And in that, you save a ton of time and a ton of labor, right?
Perfect. So I want to take a look at the cross section here. If we could pull that up on screen and walk us through that savings, what you're talking about.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side, you can see a full traditional build. And what's getting highlighted there is that full 6 inches of aggregate that's under the bedding sand. Obviously, there's going to be the constants you have in a Gator Base build versus a traditional build, which are obviously your bedding,
yep,
your fabric, your edging, and of course your G2.
Right.
Right, you're going to have your poly sand in there or your nitro, either or.
Yeah.
Those are going to be constant. But that's the big thing, right? You see those, when you get to the Gator Base side, the only aggregate that's going in there is maybe an inch.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's a cool image. If we could pull that up, you can compare a traditional install versus that Gator Base install and really get a good look at that excavation that you're talking about, John. You can see on the left-hand side, that's our traditional install where you got to go down 10 inches, and you compare that with what's on the right there. Just that 4 inches of excavation is huge.
When I see that right away, I see time savings, I see money savings, labor savings, equipment. I see savings.
Big time. I love that. That visual is so compelling.
Right.
And what we're going to do today is we're going to bring Mike and Rick up here in a little bit, and they're going to walk you through each step of that build and where the time savings is and doing a comparison with that. So it's pretty cool.
Perfect.
Awesome. So what we want to do here is we've talked about a lot of advantages that we've had. We're going to play a short video that summarizes a lot of these advantages to get us going here. Tim?
Well, a 5-day job traditionally would take 4 days with Gator Base. If a 5-day job is worth $30,000, we can do it in 4 days, frees us up to get to another day.
I love that video. It gets you pumped up.
Such a good video.
A lot of great advantages that we can talk about there. So one of the things we're going to talk today on is there's really 3 big advantages to convince you to use Gator Base. So what are those?
Yeah, we're really going to highlight the fact that, hey, it is a lot less excavation.
Yeah.
It's a lot quicker for you to lay your pavers once you have that down. And obviously, it's less cleanup, right?
Yeah, you got some great advantages there. We talked about those 3 big advantages. And what we've done is, back in the fall, we had our big HNA, Hardscape North America show. This was a show that's open to all hardscapers throughout North America. And we prototyped a model where we built out these traditional versus Gator-based patios. And we were able to demonstrate this about 42 different times and come out with a lot of case studies of what that actual time savings is. And it was pretty compelling. We've taken that exercise, and what we want to do today is walk you through that. And in order to do that, I think the best way to start is a typical example, which, you've been doing this for a long time. What's the average project you're talking about?
I'd say the bread and butter for every contractor out there is that quick 500 square foot backyard or patio, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Where we go, we're in front of contractors and dealers all the time. We're always asking them, hey, what's your average job look like? And without fail, they tell us a 500 square foot patio, that's how we make a living. So with that in mind, we're going to turn it over to Rick Pierce. He's our sales rep in Ohio, and Mike Huber, he's our technical support director. And they're going to start breaking down that 500 square foot job and showing you where that time savings is and where the money savings is. So Rick, take it away.
Thanks, guys. How you doing today? So we're going to talk about a typical 500 square foot patio and how this would apply to you and some real life numbers. So the first step is going to be excavation, right? You have 500 square feet of patio. You're actually going to have to excavate 6 inches past the edge of your pavers, right? Which is really going to turn this into a 21 by 26 and give us a total of 546 square feet that you're going to have to excavate and then base in. Now on a traditional install, you're going to dig down about 10 inches. Right? You add in a little bit of a fluff factor once you've removed that dirt from the earth, and we end up with 21 cubic yards of material that you're going to have to get rid of after you dig out that base material.
It's a lot of dirt, Rick.
It is. It's quite a bit of dirt. We do have some pretty nice pictures that you guys have seen, those images next to each other.
Side by side. Yeah. You got a much bigger pile of soil if you're on a traditional excavation than a Gator Base job, that's for sure.
So now we'll take a look at a Gator Base installation where we're only digging down 4 inches, right? It's that same 546 square feet, but we're going 4 inches down instead of 10 inches down. Add in a little bit of a fluff factor, and that's 8 cubic yards of material that we need to get rid of, Mike.
All right, 8's easier to get rid of than 21, Rick.
Right. That for a lot of you guys, that takes your trips to the dump from 4 or 5 down to 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, hey, if I can cut the number of trips I'm sending my truck out, losing that driver for the afternoon, that's a lot better for me.
Yeah. So we've talked to the excavation. Now, Mike's going to put a poll question in the group or in the chat for me, and he's going to ask, how long does it take to excavate 500 square feet? So imagine, you can get equipment back there, all that stuff. How many man hours would it take you to dig down 10 inches over 546?
Well, 546, right?
Yeah, 546.
Got to overdig.
Square
Can't end right at the edge of your pavers there. You're going to have some problems. So how long does that take, right? You got to get out there, got to get your equipment back there.
Yep.
Dig out all that soil, probably move it to the front of the house to get rid of it, right? Load your trucks up. So it takes a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. So we got some results coming in here. I don't know if we have a winner, Mike, but
well, we're pretty evenly split. It looks like the average is probably going to be about 9 hours.
Okay, 9 hours to get it done. So let's use 8, right? We'll go on the low end of that, right? We don't want to skew the numbers in our favor in any way, right? We want to keep this as fair as possible. So we'll shoot that low end and go to 8 hours. So that's for a traditional installation. Now for Gator Base, we're only digging down 4 inches, right? That's 60% less excavation that needs to be done. So I don't know if we're going to take that 8 and cut it in half, because you do need to be a little bit more precise with your final grade.
Right. Gator Base, you're only doing 1 inch of sand to level things out, right? Before you put that Gator Base down. On a traditional base, you've got your crushed stone going in, your clean stone. So if you're plus or minus 1 inch on your traditional job, not such a big deal, but you got to be plus or minus 3/8 of an inch on your Gator Base excavation. So while it's a lot less soil, you might have to take a little bit more time making sure it's a little bit more perfect and pitched off properly.
Yeah, so maybe we take that 8 hours down to what? You think 5 hours is fair, Mike? Or
Definitely.
Okay, so we'll put 5 hours for the Gator Base.
I think you and I could do it in 5 hours if we had to.
And that's saying something, because we are not good at this, right? So base stone, here comes the next step, right? You've dug out the hole, now you got to fill it back up. So this is dumping in your material into 3-inch lifts, compacting it down to 2, repeating that process a couple of times. So we're going to say that takes 10 man hours to do your base stone material, right? Gator Base replaces our base stone, right, Mike? So we have 0.
Eliminating that whole step there, Rick. So you're not bringing in all that stone, you're not compacting it in lifts. Definitely a huge savings there.
What about laying Gator Base, right? So we wouldn't have that for the traditional install.
Well,
so
a Gator Base panel is 2 foot by 3 foot. It's a piece of foam. It's very, very fast and efficient to lay. I think I could probably go out and lay 500 square feet of Gator Base by myself in an hour, Rick.
Okay. Well, again, Mike, we don't want to skew this in any way, so I'm going to put down 2 man hours to lay that Gator Base.
That definitely seems fair.
And again, once you do it a couple times, there's a little bit of a learning curve, right? But once you learn that all the gator heads need to be oriented the same direction, it lays very
stagger
quickly.
the joints, very fast. And once you start getting it down, you can actually walk over it to put additional pieces down. So very fast, very efficient, creates a great surface for laying the pavers.
So our next step would be the paver installation. Mike's going to fire up another poll. How long would it take you to lay 500 square feet of pavers? But before we get to those answers, I'm going to kick it back over to John and George, and they're going to talk a little bit about the efficiencies of laying pavers on Gator Base.
Yeah, so this is one of the greatest things about Gator Base that we've learned after launch. Before we get there, I just wanted to add a couple quick comments. I see some great chat going on in the chat box there. Keep that coming. We are going to provide a workbook with all this data that you're seeing today that'll get emailed to you afterwards. So that's a great opportunity for you to maybe slow things down a little bit and get your local rep out to walk you through the exercise.
Right.
So Rick just talked about laying pavers. That is a huge time efficiency gain when you're doing Gator Base. And what we did to sort of prove that out is we did it side by side with a couple of sales guys. What better way to test it, right?
I mean, we're not. Some of us might have been contractors, but we're not contractors.
Right. So we took two areas, each 200 square feet, and we laid them side by side with Gator Base and one on a traditional sand setting bed. And we want to play that time-lapse photography or photo for you so you can see it. So immediately, John, what are you sort of looking at here?
I mean, just right off the hop, you see the Gator Base side on the right-hand side. They're going so much quicker. They're flying. But the one thing to highlight on the left-hand side as well is Penelope is kind of just sitting around.
Yeah.
I mean, she's the studio dog, right? But you actually see her walk through. There's no concern of that with Gator Base. You're not worried about an animal walking through or a homeowner walking through your screed anymore.
Yeah, and that's big. Obviously this is just a test scenario, but if you were on a real job site, you'd have to fix that sand setting bed with the paw prints, and really that's a loss of time for you.
The other big thing too is on the Gator Base side, you can see they're actually a lot more efficient the way they're staging the pavers there.
Yeah. You're staging the pavers, you're able to slide pavers. You've got such prolific knowledge now with all of these large format pavers. You're not always putting them down in the perfect spot. You got to slide them around later. With Gator Base, so easy to do.
And it's even if you have a newer employee, right?
Yeah.
There's no concern about teaching them the proper drop click method.
Right.
And worried about your screed layer.
Yeah.
They can drop it in place and slide it and twist it right on their bedding.
Yeah, so what you get here is just a significant time savings with the Gator Base, just the laying of the pavers aspect beyond the excavation that Rick talked about. And what you see here, 35% faster is the end result, laying pavers on Gator Base versus a sand setting bed. Pretty compelling.
I'd say it's pretty compelling.
Yeah, so with that in mind, I'm going to send it back to you, Rick, so you can break down that further.
Thank you, guys. So, Mike, what was the answer for how many man hours it would take to lay 500 square feet of pavers?
It looks like our average is 12 man hours.
Okay, so if we're going to put 12 for our paver installation, and then we just heard from George and John that it's 35% faster, that's going to take our 12 down to 8 man hours. So we'll put 8 for the Gator Base side of things. And then dirt removal and cleanup. This is something that it can vary, right, depending on where your job site is and where you can dump and all that good stuff. But also the size of your truck matters. So I don't know if Tim can throw a picture up for me, but this is pretty standard equipment we see on a job site, right, Mike?
Right, guys got a 450, 550, 650. Most guys don't own a triaxle, so you're not getting rid of 21 cubic yards in one trip, Rick.
Right, yeah. So you're getting maybe 4 or 5 cubic yards with that truck. And if I got to get rid of 21 cubic yards, Mike, what am I looking at? 5, 6 trips?
4 or 5 trips, right?
Yeah, all
so
right.
Guys spending a whole day going back and forth. And then what does it cost in fuel? What does it cost in dumping fees? Here in New Jersey, it's getting tougher and tougher to get rid of fill dirt.
Yeah, so we're going to go with 5 hours for cleanup, and that's basically, driving to dump your material, right? And with Gator Base, again, we're going from 21 cubic yards of waste down to 8 cubic yards of waste. We just
You could easily cut it in half, right?
Right, so we're going to take that down to 2 man hours, right? 4 yards fits in that truck, you can take that in 2 trips. So if we do some quick math here, we're looking at 18 plus 12 is going to be 35 man hours for traditional. Mike's going to double check me and make sure I can do my math right. And then we got, let's see here, 8 was 10, 17.
Looks good
Is
to me,
that right?
Rick.
35 for traditional, 17 hours for Gator Base. Pretty big difference there.
It's a huge difference. I mean, that Gator Base is so efficient. You're saving a lot of time in the excavation, and then you're saving a lot of time in laying pavers. I don't know if you've ever seen my garage, Rick, but if there's a tool that makes you more efficient, I probably own it.
That is true.
I would be using Gator Base in a heartbeat.
So we've totaled up some hours and how long it's going to take. Now let's get into maybe the financials of this and how much it's going to cost. So base stone material, if you're doing a traditional installation, you got to bring in 23 tons of aggregate. Mike's going to insert another poll here. What's the delivered cost for aggregate? What's it going to cost for the, per ton and the dealer to get it to the job site?
I know it's costing more than it did 3 years ago, right?
Right.
You crush aggregate takes diesel fuel, delivering it takes fuel. It's aggregate's gotten more and more expensive over the past 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely has. So we got some results coming in. What are we looking at? Okay, 40 seems to be a pretty popular number.
Yeah, I'd say 40 is a good average because we got a lot of people saying 50.
Yeah, there's a couple 50s in there too. Okay, great. So we'll do 40. So we're going to do $40 a ton. And there's 23 tons, and Mike, you're going to check me on this one too, but I think that should be 920.
Should be 920. Going down the right
right.
path there, Rick.
Look at that. Gator Base. So national average for Gator Base is about $3 a square foot, so we're going to put $3 in here. And I said earlier you need 546 square feet, so that is $1,638 of Gator Base. Right? Now, what about dirt removal and cleanup, Mike? We said how many trips to the dump fees. I mean, there's a lot in that.
There certainly is. I mean, if we can make that job site, cleaner, more efficient, we don't have to spend as much time cleaning up at the end. That's great.
Yeah. So by the time you factor in, again, dump fees, diesel, we're just going to put $200 in here for your traditional, and we'll cut it in half for the Gator Base, and we'll put $100.
And that could be a lot more in some markets.
Right. Personally, I think it's a little low, especially once you start factoring all that in. But again, we don't want to stack the deck in our favor, so this is what we'll run with. And if I do some quick math here, 1,120 for the traditional, and what is that, 1,738 for the Gator Base.
All right, so I'm getting a little sticker shock here, Rick. That's a lot more for Gator Base.
It is. You're right. It's what, $600 more there, but we haven't factored in the cost of labor yet, right?
All right.
And how much quicker we're going to get things done. So that's our next slide here. Well, if I can get there. There we go. All right, so next slide. The hours we totaled up earlier, Mike, for traditional, we had 35. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right, 35. And you're going to insert another poll here for cost of labor, right? How much does the labor cost? And, take an average, and don't forget to include, your taxes, your insurance, Social Security, all that stuff, because just the hourly rate isn't what the employee cost.
Right. You got that guy out there, he costs you a certain salary, but he also costs you a lot more in overhead and other expenses there. So let's see. What are we getting here? We're getting probably, looks like $50 is a safe average.
Okay.
We're kind of split there, but most people are saying 50. We've got some 60 and 40 in there.
Okay, so $50 is a pretty good average for that one. So if I have 35 hours times $50 an hour, Mike, what's my total cost of labor on that?
$1,750, Rick.
$1,750 for our labor. And then I just had my material costs that we calculated on our last slide of $1,120. If I add these up, we are looking at $2,870 in our traditional patio. Now let's take a look at the Gator Base side.
All right, let's look.
Do you remember how many hours we had for the Gator Base installation, Mike?
I think that was 17 hours, wasn't it, Rick?
Okay, 17. Okay, what is 17 times 50?
17 times 50 gets us $850.
$850, okay. Our material cost for the Gator Base, we calculated on the last slide, right? And that's $1,738. And then if we add $850 plus $1,738, Mike, what are we looking at?
$2,588.
Okay, so $2,588 for the Gator Base side of things. Now, I'm just doing some quick math here, but that looks about $300 in savings.
That's a big number. $300 in savings, Rick? So
if you give me $300, I'll take it.
So would I.
But the bigger portion of this, and what we really want to drive home here, is the hours you're saving on the project. Mike, would you rather spend 35 hours on a job site, or would you rather spend 17 hours?
17 for sure, Rick. There's only so many hours in a day, and there aren't enough of them. So
right.
If we can be more efficient, that means that we can take on more work. We can do more jobs, right?
So if we take a look here, 35 minus 17, I think that should give us 18 hours saved on a 500 square foot patio. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. George, John, you guys want to go in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, the first thing I want to do is I want to take that $300 savings that you're talking about, Rick, and I'm going to take it into DraftKings and turn it into $10,000.
Well, I mean, if you bet on the Eagles, then you're kind of SOL there.
Yeah,
but
you're only left with that $300.
But that's the thing too, right? You are left with that $300. That
Yeah.
$300 you can put back towards your crew. You could upsell that job, sell some sealer on it, or you just made a better profit on it, right?
Yeah.
You get to pay off those bills, pay off that overhead sooner and quicker.
Absolutely. So you got real dollars saved there, that $300. The thing I love is that additional labor savings. Rick showed you how you can save 18 hours. That's a lot.
That's huge. You're saving almost a full day.
Yeah, that's 2 people out for a full day on to the next job site. Maybe they're starting to clean up somewhere else. Maybe they're doing that next hardscape job. But that 18-hour savings, it's real, and it can save you a ton of money.
And that's only one job.
Yeah.
That's based on one 500 square foot job.
Right.
I haven't met a single company that only does one job a year, right?
No.
So if you can multiply that, do 10 Gator Base builds a year, you're saving 180 hours.
Yeah, this is a great exercise, and we're going through it pretty quickly here today, but what we're gonna do is just a reminder, you're all gonna get emailed a workbook with all this information in it, but the best thing you can do is really reach out to that local Alliance rep and have them walk you through the example.
Absolutely. I mean, we're here for a reason, right? Like we don't just say it. We love to get on site with guys. We love to get our boots dirty, get our pants dirty, and we work with them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a free day of labor, right?
Absolutely. So take advantage of that. We wanted to summarize all this. We've got one other short video that we want to play here that encapsulates all of the time savings that Rick was talking about with the materials. So Tim, let's roll it.
How much time do you spend maintaining your aggregate pile on the road? Between sweeping, digging trenches behind at the curb, pushing it around, dealing with the local municipal government who doesn't like your pile of aggregate on the road. All those things take time on a job. All those things are factored into your bid price. Gator Base cuts down on all of that stuff collectively and definitely saves time and money.
Excavation's getting harder and harder to get rid of and find places for, especially the closer you get to the city. So now using the Gator Base is saving us a lot of time and money with finding places to get rid of dirt.
I'm trying to reduce labor, so the less digging I have to do, the better. I only really need 2 guys on a site other than an excavation. So if I can save a whole person and not need them for an excavation, it's a dream.
All right, so cool video that really tells and explains all the savings that's involved.
I mean, Brad said it himself. It's a dream.
Yeah.
Right? It's a dream to save that much time and that many hours in a day.
Absolutely. We have a ton of questions. I'm going to turn it over to Mike. He's our technical support director. Mike, let's scroll through that and answer a few of these live.
All right. So let's see. First question. Do you have any suggestions about installing Gator Base in a relative low point and in areas where there is no pitch? Well, Rick, installing any patio in an area where there is no pitch typically is not a great idea, right? We need some pitch to shed the water in one way or another. So, you're going to have to develop some pitch, some way for water to drain off the surface. A 2-degree slope is typically recommended. So figure out some way to drain it, whether it's, in one direction off the side or towards a drain in the middle of the project. But you are going to have to come up with some kind of drainage on a Gator Base project, just like any other project that you would be building. If water sits on top of your patio or underneath your patio, it's only going to cause problems down the road. All right, next question. Please explain your process installation technique for where a Gator Base patio would meet an existing concrete pad or an existing paver patio. Got any ideas, Rick?
Yeah, that's a great question. It can be done. It absolutely can be done. The only thing we really want to be concerned about, Mike, is that we lay the Gator Base across that concrete overlay and bridge that gap.
Right. That's a natural point for things to settle, right? That's a natural point to have an issue with the soil settling more than the concrete slab or the soil settling more than the existing aggregate base underneath the pavers. So let's make sure that we bridge that gap to some degree. We run that Gator Base over the existing base material and onto the native soils and make sure that that transition is seamless and we don't have any issues down the road. All right. How does the Gator Base perform in expansive soils? Well, that's probably a question from our friends in California, Rick. You don't deal with many expansive soils in Ohio, do you?
No, we have a lot of clay in Ohio.
Well, that's a good question too, so let's deal with both of them, all right?
Okay.
So expansive soils, it's typically a California or Western region phenomenon where oftentimes those soils, well, they can really expand quite a bit when they start to see moisture. So how does Gator Base work? Well, it works very well, but Gator Base is not a miracle product, right? So if your soils decide to lift up 6 inches, well, your Gator Base is also going to lift up 6 inches. But the key to Gator Base is that it spreads that load out over a larger area, right? It functions almost like a snowshoe, both for weight distribution and for any forces that want to lift that Gator Base up. So any movement tends to be much more uniform, gradual, your bond lines stay straighter, you don't get that differential settlement where you got two pavers in one spot that are kind of dipping in and settling, or two pavers in another area that are settling. So I would say that Gator Base is a fantastic option for your expansive soils. Now, clay soils, again, great product, but not a miracle product, right? Clay soils typically can handle 7-8 psi, and we know that from extensive studies done on foundations, right? Footings for homes and buildings and skyscrapers. So if Gator Base only kind of contributes somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 2 psi to the ground, well, sounds like we're pretty safe there, Rick, right?
Yeah, I mean, what would that put us at, 8 or 9
Yes.
psi?
So 4 to 1 margin of safety on that Gator Base on clay soils. But by the same token, if you've got clay soils where you step in one spot and it jiggles 2 feet away, you better do some soil amendment there, right? Get some larger stone compacted in there, do some Portland or lime amendment to stabilize that clay soil, and then install your Gator Base patio over that. All right, what else do we have? What concerns are there with a fire pit as part of a patio project?
That's a great question. So really, the only concern that we have is going to be thermal, right? We don't want too much heat getting to that Gator Base. So we want some form of thermal barrier between the fire source and the Gator Base.
Right, so that could be a layer of sand and paver, that could just be a layer of sand, could be fire brick, but we want to keep that heat going upwards, not downwards to melt the Gator Base. And the fire pit weight, not a problem, right, Rick?
Correct. For fire pits, that's going to be okay. So are seat walls, right? Something that's small, that would be acceptable.
Right.
Now the big fireplaces, hot tubs, probably going to want to pour a concrete slab.
Exactly. Manufacturer recommendations for outdoor kitchens and those large precast or large constructed fireplaces would be to pour a concrete slab for your foundation. Gator Base can support a seat wall up to 288 pounds per linear foot, so that's about 2 cubic feet of concrete. It certainly handles most fire pits and those low seat walls that you see everywhere. So now, you can incorporate those directly into your Gator Base build without doing a traditional foundation underneath them. So again, adding to the efficiency of Gator Base, Rick.
Exactly. Absolutely.
All right. So let's see. I've got one that I'm going to throw to George here, since it deals more with politics than actual performance. So is Gator Base ICPI approved, George?
All right, that's one of my favorite questions, Mike, ICPI and Gator Base. So a lot of great developments going on. Today, we speak, it's not approved. However, there's a lot of great test scenarios in ground that ICPI is currently studying and monitoring this. As you know, these synthetic bases, which Gator Base falls under that category, they're becoming widely used throughout the industry. So ICPI has taken a very serious look at these, and they're monitoring several test beds throughout, North America. So stay tuned, but we're very confident it will be supported by ICPI after they finish the test results. So a lot of good progress and movement on that. So,
all right,
Mike, I will throw it back to you with one more question too. Seems like there's a lot of heat questions coming here. How's Gator Base perform in freeze thaw, and does it expand? Talk to us about the temperatures with Gator Base.
Oh, I was going to make John Zimmerman answer that, seeing as he's from Canada, where it's frozen all the time. But no, I'll take it. So how does Gator Base work in freeze-thaw environments and cold temperatures? Well, Gator Base works fantastic. What's Gator Base made out of, Rick?
High-density polypropylene.
So high-density polypropylene, that's really fancy, Rick. I was just looking for foam, right? So foam is an insulator, right? Blocks the transfer of heat. Yep. So in a freeze-thaw environment, that is ideal. So we're putting down this panel for load distribution, but what we also get is a thermal blanket. So, hey, say in Ohio, you have 30 freeze-thaw cycles in a year, right? Hot, cold, hot, cold. Every time that ground freezes, it's a chance for that to move slightly, right? For that aggregate to expand. If we put that Gator Base down, our value of 3.6 per inch, you're preventing quite a few of those freeze-thaw cycles.
Yeah, Mike, I don't have an engineering degree. 3.6, what is that in crushed stone?
Oh, it's actually equivalent to about 19 inches of crushed stone as a thermal insulator, not necessarily as a structural foundation, but insulates very well. So if you normally had 30 freeze-thaw cycles in a season, well, Gator Base isn't going to eliminate all of them, but perhaps it cuts it down to 15 freeze-thaw cycles in a season, keeping that soil at a more constant temperature than the air that fluctuates quite a bit more. So This is a product that's been used across North America, from the coldest regions of Canada to Death Valley in the United States. So very well tested and well proven in all types of climates. And it really does give you a better installation that's more uniform and more consistent. It really does even out those bond lines, any movement that may occur in your soils below, to give you that long-lasting, beautiful hardscape project. All right. So, Rick, questions keep rolling in.
I know they do. Good.
Can it be used for driveways?
No, it cannot be used for driveways. The margin of safety just isn't quite there for us to recommend it in all applications across, the U.S. and Canada.
Right. How much do you weigh, Rick?
A little over 200 pounds, about 220.
Right. So how much does a car weigh?
Couple thousand pounds.
Yeah, more than a couple thousand. 4,000 or 5,000 pounds. A UPS truck that might go across a driveway could weigh quite a bit. So we're very comfortable with Gator Base in pedestrian applications. We're less comfortable with Gator Base in vehicular applications, mainly because of what the soils below might be and what your edge restraint might be. Obviously, a car turning into a driveway imparts tremendous lateral loads and could potentially cause some pavers to shift. And then, hey, Gator Base over sandy, gravelly soil, that can support quite a bit of weight. But Gator Base over clay, again, we're back to that 7-8 PSI that clay can support. It might be a little bit risky there.
A little more dicey.
Use Gator Base where it's appropriate, and that's pedestrian applications. That's where it shines. Driveways, you need to take a little bit more of that traditional approach. All right. How about concrete overlays, Rick?
Concrete, I guess you could use Gator Base over a concrete overlay.
Definitely. It's going to help to provide a drainage plane underneath your pavers and over your concrete slab, especially if some drainage holes built in there, right? So you could definitely do a concrete overlay, and it's ideal if you're going to extend that project a little bit larger than what that slab originally was, right?
Similar to that question we had earlier. Absolutely.
Exactly. All right. So I think that's about it for our questions here. So turn it back over to George and John, and they will wrap things up here.
All right, Mike, thanks for all that technical advice and support there. Lots of questions rolling in there. Your best resource, you've got these Alliance reps throughout North America and the world, really. Reach out to them. Great resource.
Absolutely. And even if it is a different language and there's a different language barrier there, we offer the shows in Spanish.
Yeah, for sure. So if you've got Spanish staff that you want to do some education with, we do offer these programs in Spanish. The best way to get to those is through our education portal.
Absolutely.
So if you go to alliancegator.com/education, you can get all the great content that we put out, both in English, Spanish, as well as in French.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate you taking time today. And if there's a couple things we want you to take away with here, is our average job is a 500 square foot patio. If you're going to do a 500 square foot patio on Gator Base, you're going to save two things.
It's going to be a lot of time and a lot of money.
Yeah, so you could save potentially that 300 hours that we talked about and 18 hours in labor. So give it a shot. We thank you for participating in the program today. Any questions, reach out and we'll be in touch. Thanks.